The night was heavy with rain, the streets slick and glistening like broken glass under flickering lamps. Emily stumbled forward, her chest tight, her breath shallow, her trembling hands clenching a soaked letter she never wished to see. The betrayal sliced deeper than any wound. It was from James, the friend she had trusted with her life. Emily said, "He took everything, even my heart, for money." Her voice cracked in the silence, the words lost in the storm's roar. The letter revealed not only theft, but a conspiracy between James and strangers who once smiled in her presence. She felt her knees weaken, her world shattering, her faith collapsing into the void of deceit. The pain surged through her veins like fire, the kind that consumes everything. Narrator. And in that moment, Emily realized the cruelty of greed, the ugliness that hides beneath the mask of friendship. The storm had not ceased when Emily stumbled into the small cafe at the corner of the street, soaked to her very soul. She collapsed into a chair, her breaths uneven, her hands numb from gripping the ruined letter. The waitress glanced at her with concern, but Emily could only whisper to herself, "He betrayed me for money." Her words carried the weight of disbelief and horror. Narrator. Trust once given is a fragile glass. Once shattered, its edges only wound deeper when held. The cafe's warmth failed to soothe the frost in her chest. She stared into the window, watching blurred headlights pass, each glow reminding her of the truth she could never unsee. Her mind replayed every shared laugh, every promise James once made. She remembered the nights they planned their futures, his voice full of conviction. Now, each memory felt poisoned. Emily said, "Did any of it mean anything?" Her whisper vanished beneath the cafe's hum. Narrator. Memory is cruel when stained by betrayal. It twists joy into anguish and trust into mockery. Her pulse raced, her thoughts spinning as if drowning in an ocean of falsehoods. The betrayal was not a moment, but a storm that consumed every recollection, every fragile bond they had built. The letter's words burned into her mind. James had not only stolen money, but had mocked her trust in front of strangers. Emily pressed her forehead against the cold glass of the cafe window, tears mixing with rain residue. "Why, James? Why was money worth more than me?" she whispered, her voice breaking into fragments. Narrator. Greed does not merely take, it destroys, consuming both the betrayer and the betrayed, leaving only ashes of once sacred bonds. The cafe blurred around her, reality twisting in waves of pain. A couple laughed at the far end of the cafe, their joy a dagger in Emily's chest. She turned away, clutching the letter closer, her body trembling as if breaking apart. Narrator. Betrayal isolates more than solitude. It cages the heart in a prison where laughter feels foreign and trust impossible. Emily whispered, "I gave him everything, and he sold it." Her voice cracked under the weight of despair. The storm outside mirrored the chaos within her, relentless and merciless, as she realized her life was no longer hers. It was shattered by greed. Morning light crept into Emily's apartment, but it felt cold, merciless. She sat at her kitchen table, the letter spread before her, its ink smudged but its cruelty intact. She had not slept, her eyes hollow from endless replay of every word James ever spoke. Emily said, "I gave him my trust, my love, and he sold it." Her whisper floated into the silence of the room. Narrator. The heart bleeds most when cut by the hand that once soothed it. Her memories crowded her mind, childhood moments with James, shared secrets, and the nights they laughed under stars. Now those stars seemed like broken glass, sharp and merciless, scattered across the floor of her life. Emily stared at her reflection in the mirror, searching for the woman she once was. Her hand touched the glass as if reaching for her old self, the one who believed friendship was unbreakable. "Who am I now?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Narrator. Betrayal erodes identity, leaving the betrayed to question not only trust but their very worth. Her reflection looked hollow, her eyes clouded with grief, as if even her soul had been stolen. The silence pressed in, heavy and suffocating, as the room seemed to shrink around her. Her phone buzzed with a message from Claire, her oldest friend who had always been her anchor. Emily hesitated before answering, Unsure if she could bear speaking, she finally whispered into the phone, "Claire, he betrayed me." Her voice cracked. Narrator: the wound deepens when spoken aloud, as if naming the betrayal gives it power. Claire's concerned voice carried warmth but also fear, for she knew the devastation James could cause. The silence between their words felt like oceans of grief Emily could never swim across. Claire arrived that evening, her embrace pulling Emily back from the edge of despair. Emily collapsed into her arms, words spilling like broken glass. "He was my best friend, Claire. He took my trust and sold it for cash." Narrator: compassion is the balm, though it cannot heal the wound. Claire's eyes shimmered with both anger and sorrow as she held her friend close, whispering, "You deserved better. You still do." The room carried their silence, heavy with grief, but also the faintest glimmer of solidarity. As night returned, Emily and Claire sat together, the letter spread between them on the table, like a scar that would never fade. Emily whispered, "Why was money worth more than loyalty?" Claire shook her head, saying, "Greed blinds the soul." Narrator: betrayal reveals not only the betrayer, but also the truth of human fragility. Emily's tears fell onto the paper, blurring the last legible words. Silence stretched, heavy with unspoken fears of what was yet to come. For betrayal was only the beginning. Emily's hands shook as she held her phone, scrolling through the conversations James had with others. Each message was another knife, sharper than the last. She whispered, "I was nothing but a transaction to him." The evidence was undeniable. He sold her trust, her love, and even her secrets to strangers. Narrator: the rising conflict grows heavier, revealing the darkest corners of betrayal. What once felt unbreakable now lies shattered at her feet. Emily's breathing grew unsteady, her heart pounding with a mix of rage and despair. The more she read, the more she realized James had built an entire world of lies around her. Emily dropped the phone on the table, her body trembling as if her own skin rejected the truth. Her voice cracked, "All those years, and I was just his way out." The weight of betrayal pressed on her chest like stone. Narrator: when the mask falls, the pain becomes unbearable. She recalled every smile, every promise James ever made, and they now felt like rehearsed lies. The world around her blurred, her mind replaying every memory as if testing which were real and which were crafted illusions. She walked to the shelf, staring at framed photos of herself and James from years past. Laughter frozen in glass now felt like mockery. Emily muttered, "Were you lying even then?" Narrator: memories are cruel when stained by betrayal. What once warmed her heart now burned her soul. Every picture became a relic of falsehood, each smile a reminder of manipulation. Her tears blurred the faces in the photographs until all she saw was a stranger standing beside her. Her phone rang again, Claire's name flashing on the screen. Emily hesitated before answering, her voice weak. "Claire, I found everything. James betrayed me." Claire's silence spoke volumes before she whispered, "I suspected, but I didn't want to hurt you." Narrator: truth carries weight for both the betrayed and those who guard it. Emily's chest tightened, even her closest ally had feared to reveal the darkness she now saw so clearly. The feeling of isolation deepened, pressing like an iron cage around her. After the call ended, Emily stood at her window, the city lights flickering indifferently through streaks of rain. She whispered, "He destroyed me, but he won't keep me down." Narrator: betrayal is not just the breaking of trust. It is also the birth of resilience. Rage and grief merged into a fragile flame of determination within her. Though her world lay in ruins, a new strength stirred in her chest. The storm outside mirrored the one inside, relentless and merciless, but no storm lasts forever. Emily sat with Claire, her voice trembling as she revealed the messages she had uncovered. "He didn't just take my money, Claire. He mocked me with strangers." Claire's face tightened with fury, whispering, "This runs deeper than we thought." Narrator: the twist arrives not in silence, but in the roar of realization. James' betrayal was not only financial, It was a performance staged at her expense. The cruelty was sharper than knives, layered in lies meant to humiliate her. Claire scrolled through the evidence, her hands shaking. Emily, he wasn't working alone. Look, these names, these numbers. Emily gasped, realizing she had been surrounded by deceit. Narrator. The betrayal was larger than one man. It was a web of greed woven around her. What she thought was a single wound was now revealed to be an orchestrated scheme, with James at its heart, pulling strings for his gain. Emily dropped the phone, her chest heaving as if the air itself betrayed her. So it was never about me, never about us. I was just his pawn. Claire placed a hand on her arm, whispering, "No, Emily, you were his victim, but you're stronger than he ever knew." Narrator. The truth cuts, but it also clarifies. The lies strip away the illusions, leaving raw reality behind. The woman who once believed in loyalty now stood at the edge of fury. Emily rose abruptly, pacing the room like a caged soul. He thought I wouldn't find out. He thought I'd stay blind forever. Her hands clenched into fists, rage finally burning through her despair. Claire said, "Then don't let him win. Make him face what he's done." Narrator. Anger, when sharpened by pain, becomes the blade of truth. Emily's sorrow was transforming, shaping into the strength she didn't know she had. Emily stopped at the window, the city's night lights flickering like witnesses to her resolve. If he wanted to destroy me, he failed. I'll confront him. Claire's voice shook but held steady. Then I'll be by your side. Narrator. The twist was complete. What began as a wound now became a mission. Emily was no longer the broken victim, but the woman preparing to face betrayal head-on, armed not with love, but with truth. Emily stood at the entrance of the crowded bar where James often met his associates. Her chest rose and fell with sharp breaths as she whispered, "Tonight, he faces me." Narrator. The moment of confrontation weighed heavy, the air thick with tension. Every memory of laughter, every secret once shared, echoed in her mind as cruel reminders of what she had lost. Her fists clenched, her fear transforming into fire. Inside, James sat at a corner table, his posture confident, a glass of whiskey in hand. He looked up, startled, as Emily approached. Emily said, "You betrayed me for money, James." Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. Narrator. The betrayer, once hidden in shadows, now faced the storm he created. The crowd faded into silence in Emily's mind, all focus drawn to the man who shattered her world. James leaned back, smirking with a mask of arrogance. "You were too easy, Emily. Trust was your weakness." Her jaw tightened, voice low but steady. "No, James, greed is yours." Narrator. The tension cracked like lightning, their words cutting deeper than blades. His lies, once hidden, spilled into the open, but her resolve burned brighter. She was no longer the victim caged by grief. She was the accuser demanding truth. Emily slammed a letter onto the table, the paper damp and torn but still legible. "This is proof of what you did, of how little I ever meant to you." James' smirk faltered, his mask cracking for the first time. Narrator. Confrontation strips away pretenses. His confidence waned as truth stared him in the face, undeniable and unforgiving. For Emily, the act of facing him became the breaking point between despair and strength. James muttered, "It was just money. You'll recover." Emily's voice rose, steady and sharp. "You sold loyalty and you killed trust. That can't be recovered." Narrator. The climax burned with finality. The victim stood no more, only the survivor remained. In that moment, Emily took back her power, no longer defined by betrayal, but by the fire of truth. Emily stepped out of the bar into the cold night, rain still falling in steady sheets, soaking her coat until it clung to her like armor made of sorrow. Her breath came in ragged bursts, yet there was steadiness beneath the tremors. She whispered, "He broke what we had, but he cannot break what I choose to rebuild." Narrator. The confrontation had left her raw, but also lighter, as though every cruel word had burned away the last illusions. The betrayal still pulsed like a wound, but no longer held her captive. The city stretched ahead, Uncaring, its neon lights a reminder that life never pauses for broken hearts. Emily's steps no longer stumbled. Though heavy, they were her own. Back in her apartment, silence engulfed her like a shroud. Emily collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion flooding every muscle. The torn letter lay on the table like a scar she could never erase. She whispered, "This paper ruined me, but it will not define me." Narrator. Healing often begins in solitude, in the smallest of choices, when the weight of despair meets the spark of endurance. Shadows stretched across the walls, no longer hostile but strangely familiar. She let her body sink deeper into the cushions, breathing steadily for the first time in days. Though fragile, she carried the sense that survival had begun. Claire arrived quietly, her eyes scanning Emily's face with unspoken concern. Emily lifted her gaze, voice trembling yet firm. "He broke me, but he doesn't own my future." Claire sat opposite her, reaching across the table. "You are stronger than his betrayal," she said softly. Narrator. Bonds forged in truth endure when false ones shatter. Emily felt warmth seep through her friend's touch, a fragile reminder that not every connection was poison. Pain lingered, but she was not entirely alone. The room, once suffocating, now felt less empty, carrying the gentle pulse of solidarity. Emily stood before the bookshelf, staring at a photo of herself and James, their smiles immortalized in glass. Her hands shook as she lifted it, her voice steady. "This no longer defines me." Slowly, she placed it face down. Narrator. Letting go does not erase memory. It reclaims power. The picture remained but no longer carried authority over her heart. It was not forgiveness, nor forgetfulness, but defiance. Emily understood the scar would always live within her, but it would no longer chain her. In the quiet, she finally felt the faintest echo of release. Emily opened the window, rain-scented air rushing in with a cool embrace. She leaned against the frame, whispering, "I survived him." Narrator. Resolution is not the end of pain, but the birth of endurance. Betrayal had carved wounds that would scar, yet the night no longer mocked her. The city lights shimmered through the drizzle like distant beacons, reminding her that tomorrow awaited. For the first time in weeks, Emily allowed herself to imagine a life beyond betrayal, not free of hurt but carried by strength. The storm outside mirrored her heart, relentless but no longer invincible. Emily sat at her desk, the phone glowing in her trembling hand, thumb hovering over Claire's number. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Just answer. I don't want to be alone tonight." Narrator. Betrayal leaves more than loss. It leaves silence that screams. Every tick of the clock echoed in the small room, amplifying her loneliness. Though her body was steady, her heart cried for connection. She braced herself for the possibility of no response, the kind of emptiness even love cannot always fill. The call rang unanswered. Emily lowered the phone, her shoulders sinking beneath the weight of silence. She whispered, "Even those who love me can't silence this pain." Narrator. Silence can feel heavier than words. It pressed into her chest, reminding her that betrayal leaves scars no hand can reach. The missed call symbolized more than isolation. It was proof that some wounds cannot be soothed by company. She sat motionless, grief lingering like smoke after fire, bitter and inescapable. Emily rose slowly, moving to the window. The city stretched before her, indifferent and endless, each light belonging to someone else. She murmured, "I thought trust was forever, but I was wrong." Narrator. The world carried on, uncaring for her grief, yet there was comfort in its constancy. Betrayal marked her, but it did not stop the movement of life. The city hummed beneath her gaze, reminding her that though her trust was broken, her story was still being written, one fragile breath at a time. Her palm pressed against the glass, fingers trembling as rain traced its path outside. She whispered, "This scar will stay, but it will not own me." Narrator. Finality is not forgetting, it is choosing to live with the wound. The pain had not faded. It had transformed into a shadow she would carry, shaping her but not destroying her. Her strength was fragile, yet undeniable, a flame refusing to be extinguished in the storm. The betrayal had stolen much, but not the core of her will. Emily returned to her desk, the folded letter lying in silence like a relic of destruction. She whispered, "He took my trust, but not my voice." Narrator. The final scene rests not in triumph but in haunting truth. Betrayal leaves echoes that linger long after the wound. Yet within those echoes lies the seed of survival. Emily sat in shadow, her silhouette steady against the dim light. The room was still, filled, not with despair, but with the quiet promise that though scarred, she would endure.